up in the Northern Beaches at the moment. Now, Jason, there is a stay-at-home order, of course. Residents there being asked to stay at home, not leave the area for the next 3 days. How have locals reacted to this?
Oh, look, there's been a huge amount of concern. I mean, it's not something that we thought would happen in our community. We're, pretty safe community, generally speaking. I think people right across Australia, but especially New South Wales, thought that we had this pandemic under control. So for there to be an outbreak like this, as it has occurred today and over the last couple of days, has been quite a shock to a lot of people in my community.
And also for the testing centres, we've seen incredible lines, people having to line up for 3 to 4 hours. Are they getting through this backlog?
Yeah, I have to really commend New South Wales Health and all the health workers, generally speaking, on the Northern Beaches. We've now had 6 pop-up testing clinics happen. Avalon and Mona Vale have gone to 24 hours. Mona Vale Hospital has had a quadrupling of its staff pretty much overnight. So Gus Worland put it really well just last night. He said, look, I'm standing in line for 3 hours, but that's what we need to do to make sure that our community is safe and our neighbours are safe. And really that expresses, I think, the spirit of the Northern Beaches quite well.
The New South Wales Premier this morning is warning that the state needs to brace for more cases in this cluster. If we look at it as a whole, Jason, we know we had the Tyrot cluster in New South Wales that had more than 100 cases linked, the Crossroads Hotel cluster. Do we have to put it into perspective that New South Wales has a proven track record when it does come to its contact tracing?
Absolutely. Our contact tracing is recognised globally as one of the best in the world. The Biden administration is actually talking to people in New South Wales about how we've done it and how that they can implement our systems in the United States to help get their pandemic under control in the US. So New South Wales has a track record of being able to track and trace these things ultimately. This outbreak started, we know, on December 11. It's December 8. It's the 18th of December today, so a week later. Hopefully by 11 o'clock, we will pretty much know everyone who's been infected. There will obviously be other people who come after that because you can't get everyone at the same time. But that is, I think, by world standards, an extraordinary record and one that we need to be very proud of in this country and in this state.
In the event that this case does grow quite considerably, and we are aware that we're only 1 week out from Christmas, would a lockdown in the Northern Beaches be appropriate?
Look, no one wants to actually jump to that yet. Hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully by tomorrow, certainly by the end of the weekend, we'll know exactly where we stand and we can take appropriate action that way. But no one, I think, wants to go to a lockdown. And I think there are large parts of the Northern Beaches that are untouched by this. So it wouldn't be appropriate across the entire Northern Beaches. There may be parts where that's necessary. But the reason that Australia has weathered this pandemic better than frankly any other nation on the face of the planet is because we have followed the health advice. So if the health advice says that that's a necessary step to take, then that's a step we'll need to take. But look, we all pray and hope that it doesn't come to that.
The strain of this particular cluster has been sourced back to an international case. Now, there's been a lot of questions over this topic this week, and we still don't know, though, whether it was through quarantine or other sources. Jason, is it time that we reviewed our entire system when it does come to international arrivals, particularly aircrew?
So that is an ongoing. So we have been revising that from day one. We're always trying to get that system better. There are people who need, I think there are some people in our community who think, oh, if you go overseas, well, that's on you. But the truth is a lot of people in my community who have gone overseas and who are now trying to get home went overseas, not because they wanted to, but because they needed to, because they had parents in other countries who were very sick or ill, who didn't have anyone else in their country. So they went to look after parents or in some cases children who were very sick and not well. These were not people who left because they were looking for a holiday. These were people who felt they had to leave. So on returning, we need to obviously have a system that allows more people to leave and come, but to ensure the safety of our community at the same time. And that system has been constantly under review. I know one of the systems that we're actively looking at a federal level is the system that they've implemented in Singapore. But yes, it would seem at this stage that this is not something that has come through the quarantine hotel system.
But what about
but possibly may have been a flight crew.
Well, what about flight crew though? Because at the moment in New South Wales, they are allowed to go home. For example, they must stay in that residence until their next flight. But they're not isolating for 2 weeks though. So should that now come under review? Is that a shortfall?
Well, let's not jump to conclusions. That's important not to do that. But yes, it certainly looks at this point as though that is something out of this situation that we're going to have to review. But let's not go there yet. Let's get to the bottom of what actually occurred and then make decisions on the basis of fact. One of the reasons, once again, that we have done so well as a nation out of this pandemic is that we have made fact-based decisions.
And just finally, the situation with the borders. Christmas plans now for so many have been thrown into disarray. Overnight, Western Australia, now it's a mandatory 2 weeks quarantine for all New South Wales arrivals, where other jurisdictions, it's just for those living on the northern beaches. Is that an appropriate response, do you think, or a knee-jerk reaction?
Look, I would urge other states, and let me say, I understand that premiers have a responsibility to keep their community safe. That is the first responsibility of all governments, to ensure the safety of its people. And I understand there will be different approaches to that. However, I would urge people just to take a breath, not to jump to conclusions. This is something that we will know more about in the coming hours and days, and it may be that closing the borders is not necessary. What we have seen, unfortunately, in Australia has been that it seems to be very easy to close borders, and then it takes a long time to actually reopen them. So where we don't want to be in that situation just before Christmas, where we've made a preemptive strike, if you want to put it that way, and then when it turns out that the situation isn't as bad as we thought it was, that it takes a week, which would include Christmas, to reopen.
Jason Falinski, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Danica. I really appreciate it.